Which means we can get into the papers, Blessed?
Yeah, we can. I have the Daily Guide this morning. The Daily Guide is, looking up to the NPP race because there's a declaration by Samuel Abujinapo. It's captured here on the front page of the Daily Guide. Bawah is is NPP's winnable candidate. That's his assessment of the race. It's quite a tight one going in there, but we wait to see what will happen at the end of the contest.
Yesterday I met my friend Stephen Amoa, Dr. Stephen Amoa, sticker for short. and he said to me that, Miriam, the elections, look, Dr. Bawah is a fine man, but no, he's not the one they need at this point in time.
Yeah, and they've been saying that a lot, that they need power, not a fine candidate. That's their...
Well, I'm actually waiting for the elections. At this point, I don't have anything to say. I would only wait once the NPP is done voting. I'll be there to do the analysis as to... I'll tell you why this person won and why the other person didn't win. But I think I have an idea who would win.
Great. There's a talk about the former finance minister as well. The AG has now triggered some processes to the U.S. government. So he's also here on the front page of the Daily Guide of Riata Akori extradition request transmitted to the U.S. The U.S., I recall attending the press briefing by the U.S. last week, and the indication is that it's not a quick process. So we have to be mindful of the legal implications as well. Stay to honor Alex Dade, and there's the talk about Yoko recovering 15.19 million US dollars in crypto scams, and over 1.3 million youth unemployed. That's the new stats we're getting from the Statistical Service. So these are some of the stories you would have when you grab a copy of the Daily Guide this morning.
Well, good morning. I think I have the Daily Graphic.
Yes.
And the top story is actually about Yoko. Yoko smashes online scam in Ghana and in the UK and recovers 15.19 million United States dollars. This is by the Attorney General, Honorable Dominic Akrutinga Ayine. I also think that there's an interesting story about the IMF approving 385 million for Ghana. You do know that we are currently under an IMF program, and this is part of the extended credit facility. We also have a story about the Honorable Sam Jonah, who has petitioned the foreign minister of an illegal takeover of a property or some investments in Nigeria. I think there's also something about the chief of staff and Abubakar discussing using theatre to project Ghana. I like the story on projecting Ghana using theatre. I think that is actually very interesting. And so we want to look at Ghana in different ways. And I like the fact that in December, you'll find so many tourists coming in. I think it is time for us to rethink the creative arts in particular, connecting it to tourism, and of course looking at it in the eyes of theatre. You know, there's something that we have that we don't actually value: our stories. Our stories, how we sell them, how we tell them, who we expect to listen to our stories, and actually what it is that we want to communicate through our stories. Look, there are countries that have become centers because of annual festivals. People go there, they troop there just because they want to participate in these festivals. I think if you look at what happens usually in the summer in the UK, there's all sorts of them. We actually need to start, and I love something that is going on. The tourism ministry, the creative arts agencies, the hotels and all of these things, you can see there's a certain effort now to reignite how we look at these things to do with theatre, to do with movies, to do with telling our story, to do with history. You know, there's also a big challenge. It's about accessing Ghana in the first place. It's about cost of doing business in Ghana. It's about customer service. It's even about how we market these things that have to do with theatre. But of course, thanks to social media, I think that news portals are replete now with stories, very good stories about festivals, about concerts, about all sorts of things. I even had a very interesting conversation about funerals becoming part of this whole tourist thing, which I thought, okay, that's another level, you know.
No, but funerals is actually a great...
That's another level.
No, but it's a great source of tourism. And I'll tell you why.
So they say.
No, I'll tell you why. When the boys are going for funeral, look, and I've had friends who have called me and said, when are you doing your father's 1 year? Why? Because when we were coming from my father's funeral at Mpoho, they set off in Accra at 12 noon. Accra to Takrade, where they were lodged. Yeah. It's because of the construction. It took about 6 hours.
Wow.
They got there at midnight.
Yeah.
Every point they get to, they will stop. Yeah. So while they are stopping, they're actually spending on the road. Yeah. So the whole essence of a funeral tourism is that when you move, you spend. Okay. When you move, you spend. And as you spend, when you even get into that particular community, you will spend. You would have people coming in there to lodge. And so the good thing is that it leads to some economic activity in the area. But you know, Blessed, you know that the Americans used movies to defeat Vietnam.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
Americans use movies to defeat Vietnam. Because in that war, they didn't, the things you see in the movies is not what actually happened. I mean, there's a whole concept of a people's war when it comes to insurgencies. And it comes from Ho Chi Minh's strategy in Vietnam. What did Americans do? They actually would use their movies with the Vietnamese to show you how they excelled, when they did not in reality. The Chinese have done that with their movies. Today, the American English is the language of pop culture. Why? Because they used that. There was a deliberate attempt to do that. It's the reason I think that we have an opportunity, except that, again, look, we saw what we did in 2019 with the year of return, and how Ghana became the place for activities in December. Unfortunately for us now, other African countries have also gotten into this whole dirty December. And as we toy with the how to call it and everything, they're moving. So a lot has to be done.
And just to chip in that today as well, the Diaspora Summit will be happening. So it's also a perfect opportunity to tap into the diaspora and their energies in supporting the country. It will be a busy week for national security next week, because national security is indicating on the Ghanaian Point this morning that there will be a nationwide surveillance for 2025 Christmas festivities. Then there's the talk about the former finance minister again. But what's of interest also has got to do with the judiciary. They are designating 3 high courts to handle Galamsey cases. So it looks like we're making some inroads when it comes to the fight against illegal mining.
You see, I have always said this, and I'd repeat it now that we have the presidential advisor here. Galamsey, if you arrest the boys who are in the pits, you haven't solved anything. The people who are involved, and just as the NDC promised to arrest the kingpins, the people who are involved are not the boys in the pit. Because as for them, they'll go for their by day. The people who sponsor it, Blessed, look, can the boy in the pit rent excavators? That cost thousands of Ghana. Can he buy them? Who are the people behind it? And I've always shared with you what Speaker Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagbin said last year. He advised members of parliament that those of you who go to the Galamseyers to collect money, stop it. Those of you who are engaged in it, stop it. And one would expect that they will start the example from parliament. If the speaker knows them, because he was advising them, we know you. If we don't do that, look, we would never win this fight.
Well, you know, I think that, you see, to every challenge there's a solution. I think that first and foremost it's also about the commitment of leadership to fighting this particular canker. I also think it's also because there's also a certain empathy for what it is that is going on another level, because you do know that this is also about livelihood. But all in all, I think that every effort is being done, and I have personally observed the extent of the commitment that government has actually demonstrated over the last few months. You know, look, I keep saying that we all have a great opportunity, okay, to stop a certain approach towards the blame game. Maybe what we need to be looking at also is how we can use advocacy. We can use a certain level of activism. And just as I started off by talking about theater, for example, we can start to use our theatrical acts to even discuss this particular menace. to discuss what it is that other people can do. We can visit some of these sites, engage these people who actually participate in this activity. Look, the National House of Chiefs, and I listened to Togbe Afede yesterday when he actually proudly demonstrated that the Volta region is the oxygen city, largely because in the Volta region they have worked very hard. But you see, look at the level of engagement of some of these opinion leaders in that region in particular. You know, it is not because they don't have gold. It is just that it is an activity that maybe they have tried very hard in their own way to prevent. That is one. Secondly, in most of these areas where we have extreme activities of illegal mining, it's also because these are historically mining areas where the communities have become very dependent on mining. This is how they've always lived. So when you have mines also that have been abandoned, remember, we live in the Gold Coast. People always know that every part of these old and abandoned mines that you find, you will always find a certain amount of gold. And you see, for as long as gold prices remain as high as they are, there is also a scramble for same. I don't want us to continue this conversation that always seeks to blame one person for doing enough and not doing enough. I believe that the speaker himself is actually very serious about fighting this menace. And I realize the Chief Justice, you know, as for His Excellency the President, I don't even want to go there, because you can see that he has for the first time allowed the people employed to do this activity and to work on it to do so. Why? We've invited the National House of Chiefs, we've invited you, the media, to support us, and I think that it is everybody's responsibility, because you see, sometimes for lack of understanding, my people perish. I am convinced that when the doctors started talking about the diseases, for example, if you notice, it actually went a very long way to even help government in its fight, because then people appreciated the nuances in terms of the challenges to do with health, in terms of what challenge. When the Ghana Water Company came out with the videos about what we're doing to water, for example, you see how it actually jolted people into reacting a certain way. You know, it is a conversation also that transcends what they're doing to the environment. It's about survival also. And you just read the statistics about lack of employment. Look, I have a friend, and I don't want to mention his name, because I've been trying in my own private way to have conversations about why we are struggling to stop young people from engaging in this activity. And then I told him, I said, oh, well, you know, I mean, you work in the area. How about paying them? He said, oh, we have a whole list. We pay them literally every month. Yes. You'll be surprised what persons who are mining in these areas go through just to keep people, unscrupulous persons, from actually attacking their mines. It's another conversation that we are not even having. So you see, it's a whole logistical thing. And sometimes you might think that, oh, maybe, look at the time when the military went into the area and then they tried to attack them. Imagine that the military had not gone back the next day to respond as they did. It would have been a new approach to this issue. So, and we don't also want to take people who are going to fight this menace to deliberately go and lose their lives. So many lives have been lost already. And you know, look, I want us to look at it from the perspective of more advocacy, where you appeal to their consciousness, where through education they realize that this is not right. But yes, the other side of it is that the sponsors of the activity, first and foremost, that part everybody agrees with. I don't think that is even a conversation that is in doubt. We all agree that that is where you should start from. And it is a reason why, if you observe lately, we're not emphasizing even on the young people being arrested, because everybody knows that it is not their fault. They just want to wake up in the morning and have something to do and at least be able to earn some income. So largely it is the people who sponsor these activities. But you see, it is not always the illegal mining alone. There is also an aspect where people who have ordinarily been issued with such licenses are allowing people to go there and undertake this activity, because one, they don't want to invest in the manner that government will expect you to do if you want to undertake responsible mining. So there's all sorts of aspects that a lot of the time we don't even get to discuss. My brother, this is a conversation that affects every single Ghanaian. For those of us alive today and for those who are going into the future, I believe strongly that leadership currently has demonstrated commitment to this fight. It is now for us also to support leadership in that endeavor. Look, trials will happen, but whilst you are trying them, whilst you are arresting them, the activity will still be going on. The conversation must be about us focusing on further improvements in support for agric, for example. Look, a few days ago I discovered something amazing. The biggest non-traditional export for Ghana for the last 2 years is the humble tuber of yam.
Yeah.
Think about it. My father used to have a yam farm. It's one of the most basic things that you can grow in all weather conditions. It is the one thing that is also not subject to quality of soil and all of that. So we can find ways to encourage young people. Is it not easier to just plant yam than even to go into these minefields? It is a lot easier. It's safer. It's healthier. And then you find out that you are even contributing to society in a certain way.